Hi, my name is Michael Klein, and this is my demo video for Module 2 for CST 336. Our Lab 2 and Assignment 2 this week were to work with PHP. PHP is a server-side scripting language originally created just to kind of interface with data and be able to work with HTML and CSS and present that on a web page. It kind of developed into a full-blown programming language. And so there's a lot you can do with it. So we've been working with PHP on just kind of a real basic level to integrate it into HTML code and be able to see what we can do with it. So our lab assignment was to create something similar to this, and using that same code we can create a different assignment with tables and information being generated. And so I went ahead and created a kind of a little pseudo slot machine. And so you can see when we refresh the page, the images change, or we can even click down here in the spin and the same thing happens. Let me walk you through my code. So here is my PHP code where I've got my declared variables up top, the number of columns and rows. I've got some counters for the various images that will come up, and I've also got my images down here that are actually being displayed in the little squares. I used a for statement, two nested for statements, very similar to what we did in the lab this week, and I used some if and nested if-else statements, also somewhat similar to what we had done in the lab. And this, using random numbers, I'm going to produce 5 possible random numbers from 0 to 4, and based on the output, 0 gives me ship, 1 gives me captain, so on and so forth. Those different random numbers will produce different images, just like if a slot machine were being pulled. And then I have a separate container and PHP table that I'm creating, and this has my counts in it. Letting me know how much of each image showed up. And again, this isn't an actual functioning slot game, but it has a lot of the elements that if we were to combine this to a database and be able to actually track a player's winnings and how much and how often certain images came up, or even put in some additional conditionals based on the order of the images coming up, we would have a fully functioning game. But this is a way to kind of use PHP and HTML tables to kind of give a little pseudo precursor and kind of one part of what would make a slot machine game. And so then, additional to having my PHP code down here and echoing out my HTML tables, I have some style that I have up here. And so I've got some different style to my images. I've got some table style here in the table, the TD and the TH. Some basic styling to my H1 and H3 headers, to my overall, just my body background color. And then I'll come back to button, but I've got my style for the slot machine and slot images. This is just a static image in the back. And then on top of that, I have my slot images, which is my table, my HTML table, and the images for those different table elements. And then my container and these are classes that I've called in, and this is for my simple table on the side, which shows the counts to the various images, how often they come up. And then the last little piece of code, which is kind of neat, is I've got some styling for my button. I laid an invisible or transparent button over the part of the background slot machine image that says spin, so that if the user actually clicks on spin, they're clicking on an invisible button, which gives the impression of spinning. What it's actually doing is it's just refreshing the page, and we can see that down here in this code here, which just kind of gives the impression of that. So now if we come back here, we can see that we can refresh the page here, which gives the impression of a spin, or we could actually click this invisible button, and you can see it gives the impression of a spin, and also changes our counts here. And of course, using these same concepts, you could create any sort of project you wanted with PHP and HTML tables. This is just one example and my project for assignment 2. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful as you work on your own assignments.